Tonight, Toronto police launch a week-long crackdown on distracted drivers and people who block lanes during rush hour.
You get in the car, if you know that you're guilty of sneaking a peek at the phone or jumping on it, do something different this year.
Officers will be riding TTC buses and streetcars looking to bust drivers on their phones. Plus,
you can't go anywhere, you can't really do anything.
The passport is the golden ticket.
How this permanent resident finally got back into Canada after 5 weeks in limbo. And Instagram videos of 2 on-duty police officers posing with women at a bar leads to a review of their professional conduct. Good evening, I'm Mike Wise. Toronto Police will continue a pair of traffic safety blitzes tomorrow. One is aimed at cars blocking downtown traffic during rush hour. The other is a more covert campaign to crack down on distracted driving, a problem police say is not getting any better. Our Taylor Simmons rode along with police tonight.
Let's jump in. We've got a couple of these on the road, pickup trucks as we're using as well.
Taller vehicles, to see those glowing lights from cell phones, a sign someone is distracted driving. This driver found themselves with a $615 ticket.
Take a look at these options carefully because this is very serious.
Police say they launched the 1-week distracted driving blitz, even riding on TTC vehicles, because they don't see the problem going away. They handed out more than 10,000 tickets last year, and as of January, they can now hand out steeper fines, up to $1,000, 3 demerit points, and a 3-day suspension for a first offense, even worse with multiple convictions.
Obviously, the message just isn't getting out there. So it is a zero-tolerance approach. That's the instruction to the officers, is to go out and when they see instances of distracted driving, is to not accept any excuses.
Police also launched a ticket and tow campaign running until February 1st for any vehicles blocking busy streets during rush hour. For those cases, they hand out about 70,000 tickets every year.
Folks seem to fall back into old habits over time, and so we're out there to remind folks again with a ticket and a tow truck about keeping the roads moving.
Today, people had mixed reviews to the traffic blitz.
My Lyft driver was so frustrated because he had just gotten a ticket for literally just picking someone up like the same way that they just picked me up. So I think that's kind of tricky.
Before distracted driving, everyone seems to be on the same page.
People should be paying attention to the road.
For those wondering, police say although sipping a coffee or eating a snack is distracting, this campaign isn't for those drivers. So for those still using their phone,
if you can't, throw it in the glove box and put it away if you can't control it.
Police want to remind you they'll be out all week with these extra resources like the vans and riding on the TTC. So if you are distracted driving, chances are you will be caught. Taylor Simmons, CBC News, Toronto.
A man in his 40s was taken to hospital with serious injuries tonight after he was stabbed in Scarborough. It happened near Upton Road and Warden Avenue just after 8:30. Police aren't releasing any details about a suspect at this time. The man's injuries are not considered life-threatening. Well, a young Saudi woman granted asylum in Canada this weekend spoke with CBC News this afternoon. Rahaf Mohammed Al-Qanun told CBC's Susan Ormiston that after arriving in Canada, she felt reborn.
Can you say something to Canadians in English?
جارت طبعا تقدري تقولي حاجة للكنديين بالإنجليزي يعني في حاجة عايزة تقوليها لهم بالإنجليزي زي رسالة قولي لنا إني أحبكم. She says I want to tell them I love them. بس بالإنجليش ما أعرف.
Not in English?
No.
Could you say hello? Could you say hello?
للناس الكنديين تقصد؟ Yeah, just say hello يعني قولي. Okay, hello people.
Well, she says she never thought her story would be known around the world. Arriving in Toronto on Saturday, she was greeted by Foreign Affairs Minister Chrystia Freeland. Rahaf says she now wishes to use the last name Mohammed only. She says she fled Saudi Arabia because of physical violence from her family. She was locked inside her home for 6 months after cutting her hair and was threatened with death. Mohammed is expected to make a public statement tomorrow. A man who has lived in Canada for nearly 60 years has learned the hard way the value of having Canadian citizenship. The man was only a permanent resident here, but when his passport was stolen during a recent trip to Europe, he found himself unable to return home a state of legal limbo that took 5 weeks to straighten out. Adrian Chung has a story.
Just kiss me.
It's been a long time coming for Case Ryder and his wife, Marilyn. There was no guarantee he'd be back on Canadian soil anytime soon.
I made it.
Feeling fortunate that 5 weeks of jumping through legal hoops is finally over.
You can't go anywhere. You can't really do anything.
The Ryder family took a vacation to Italy for Case's 65th birthday in November. Then, in a Naples train station, his passport and Canadian residency card was stolen.
Of course, I've been traveling on it for, God knows, years. But yeah, once that's gone, you're not getting back into Canada.
Despite living in Canada for nearly 60 years after immigrating from the Netherlands, Case and many of his siblings never got their Canadian citizenship.
You'll have to reestablish your permanent residency. The passport is the golden ticket. It used to
This immigration lawyer says in the eyes of the law, Case was essentially stateless.
So in a case like this, where someone loses their documents, it could be very difficult, especially depending on the country and what they may be going through in terms of issuing these documents, to get that status to show, well, at least I can travel back to Canada.
But in a stroke of luck and persistence, the Dutch government issued Case a Dutch passport that allowed him to get back to Canada.
That was fast, because we have heard other people was a lot longer than that, up to 9 months.
Through it all, his family never gave up.
Like, we'll go-getters on the phone every morning, the whole month, calling people, figuring out how to navigate through the bureaucracy. I cannot imagine how somebody on their own could have done all of this.
He has a warning for anyone traveling with a permanent resident card.
Get your Canadian
Citizenship.
and get your Canadian passport.
His first order of business?
And this is your Dutch passport now?
You got it.
Yeah.
But that's going to soon change to a Canadian passport, because I'm not going to go through this again.
But not before getting his first taste of Canadian coffee in weeks. Adrian Chung, CBC News, Toronto.
Toronto police are investigating the conduct of 2 officers after video emerged of them posing with a woman in a bar. Police say the officers weren't there for a work-related call. The videos posted to Instagram show an officer pretend to arrest a laughing woman as her friends and another police officer looks on. Other videos show the officers giving the woman a ride in their patrol car. A police spokesperson says the Professional Standards Unit is now looking into the videos and will determine whether or not misconduct has taken place. And take a look at this helicopter footage released by Durham police. It shows officers using thermal imaging to track down a suspect they say tried to commit bank fraud by impersonating someone else. When officers tried to arrest him, police say he tried to strike an officer before running into the woods. It took less than an hour for a police helicopter and the K9 unit you see there to find the man. A 23-year-old from Laval, Quebec, is facing fraud and assault charges.
Tonight, the Army moves in. Another blizzard hits southern Ontario, and Toronto just can't cope. It might have people across this country shaking their heads, even rolling their eyes. Toronto's losing battle with winter this year. Well, today it turned into a Cold War, one the military is ready to help to fight.
They shut down the office, so I'm on my way out of here.
I've seen worse in Montreal. I can't believe the city can't get it together.
It's like it's only winter, it's just some snow.
They are still laughing at us. This was the National 20 years ago, January 14th, 1999. Toronto Mayor Mel Lastman called in the troops, and the city became the butt of jokes for years to come. And now, in 2 weeks prior, over 100 centimeters of snow had fallen on the city. So on this day, 2 decades ago, 400 soldiers from Petawawa arrived in the city, hundreds more on standby. The next day, Lastman, as you see there, visited the base at Downsview and even took a ride on a military vehicle himself. Colette Kennedy's here with her first look at the forecast. I remember that winter from 20 years ago, covering it, being stuck in the snow, and then, of course, being teased by it when he went traveling. People, oh, Toronto can't handle the snow, but it was relentless that year, and it's certainly nothing we can relate to this winter.
That's right. When you got to call in 400 soldiers, I guess it does make us look like, hey, maybe we can't handle it. But you know what? It was mostly, I think the primary reason was because of emergency services, worrying about whether they'd be able to get to those folks who needed it. So you can understand that. And it was a really interesting time because it was several days. It was about 2 weeks worth of days with some kind of snow falling. And that all really, really added up. Now, in terms of our snowfall, we've got some flurries or dusting. I have that in kind of the short-term forecast. But looking ahead, and we'll talk about it later in the show, we might see something a little more significant down the road. For tonight, though, just around the lakes, a little bit of flurry activity, and even into tomorrow morning, slim chance we could have the odd flurry coming into the GTA. It's a pretty slim chance. Other than that, what we will be handling will be the cloud cover, and also the winds turning to the southwest, so some milder air that pushes in as we're kind of going through the day tomorrow. It stays kind of mild into Wednesday, but only part of Wednesday before the cold front will move through and change our temperatures significantly. Overnight tonight, though, those clouds coming through, -6 to -8 around the region. And then those winds again, a little bit strong at times tomorrow. Tomorrow afternoon, 1 degree with quite a bit of cloud cover, though. So that's going to be nice to have temperatures just a little bit milder, although there'll still be a bit of a wind chill, Mike.
But quite a break from the weekend. Okay, thanks, Colette.
You're welcome.
It was no doubt a very, very busy day for any of the individuals or businesses who won the cannabis retail license lottery on Friday. Just 25 licenses were awarded, and now the winners have just 4 more days to clear some big legal and financial hurdles before they can go into business. Our Greg Ross tagged along as one lucky winner learned firsthand just how much work he still needs to do.
It was one of excitement and at the same time of, oh my goodness, we have 5 days to get this done. It's a lot of things to get done.
So literally you had to hit the ground running today.
Yes, exactly.
Clint Sukaran has until 5 p.m. this Friday to meet a number of requirements. You're an established businessman. Do you think the average person would be able to get this done in this time frame?
I think it will be a very steep uphill climb. Yep, I can't say if they would. It depends on the individual and the determination and the drive that they have, but I would say it's difficult.
And that's why Sukaran has enlisted help to get his ducks in a row. So this is one of your first stops here today.
Yes.
What are we doing here?
This is CCI, Cannabis Compliance Inc.
Well, we're the largest consulting firm in the cannabis space in the world. We help people navigate through the Health Canada process, whether they want to become a licensed cultivator, processor, or, like Clint, getting into the retail side of the business.
As you guys know, I have no experience in this field. I think it's well known that I'm a novice, and I'm going to depend on you to hold my hand through this process.
So we're going to be going through with you the requirements for that application, what business information we need. We'll be giving you a checklist for you to get some documentation to us as soon as possible.
As part of the application process, Sukaran will have to submit his business plan along with a $10,000 application fee. He says that's doable, but he also has to provide a $50,000 letter of credit from his bank, which might be a problem.
The banks that I work with right now do not want to operate in the cannabis space. So I have to look at alternative or other banks that I have no history with.
That is why today Sukaran worked frantically to transfer all of his accounts, both business and personal, to the Alterna Savings Bank, which has a number of clients that operate in the cannabis field. They're going to give you this letter of credit for $50,000?
They have said that they will do it, they will accommodate me, and they will try to expedite it. But you know, that's the most I can ask of them now. In terms of them actually coming through with it, you know, we'll see what happens.
They're saying that the 5 days, even this bank that's saying they're willing to work with you, they're saying 5 days is still a very short period of time.
Absolutely, yes.
But securing that letter of credit may not be Sukaran's only obstacle. He wants to open his shop in Brampton, where his other business operates, but City Council in Brampton has yet to decide whether or not to allow retail pot shops. They have until the 22nd of this month to decide. Mississauga has already opted out. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
In April 2016, 30-year-old Melissa Cooper's severed torso was found outside a butcher shop here in Riverdale. Today, her mother wept in court as she started testifying as the trial began. I'm Chris Glover. Coming up, why the accused pleaded guilty to one charge, but not guilty to murder.
There'll be no fast tracking of a court hearing to look into the naming of Ron Tavener as the new OPP commissioner.
We are facing the real risk of a utter void in accountability, a vacuum in accountability. And that is what we say is of compelling public interest that needs to be addressed as quickly as possible.
A judge today rejecting a request to move up the date for a special hearing. That would have looked into whether Ontario's ombudsman should look into Tavener's appointment to head the OPP. Ron Tavener is a veteran Toronto police superintendent. He's also a friend of Premier Ford.
Any police
Ford has denied having any role in his appointment. The man who wants an investigation to happen as soon as possible is OPP Deputy Commissioner Brad Blair, who was a candidate for the top job. Blair's lawyer says an investigation is needed because Tavener's appointment could damage the command structure of the OPP. And the trial will continue tomorrow for the man charged in the death and dismemberment of a Toronto woman back in 2016. The torso belonging to 30-year-old Melissa Cooper was found outside a butcher shop near Broadview and Gerrard. The accused, Ian O'Hab, pleaded guilty to committing an indignity to a body, but he pleaded not guilty to first-degree murder. Chris Glover has more on the emotional first day in court.
Melissa Cooper struggled her way through life. She abused alcohol as early as 13 and ended up on the street, addicted to drugs and booze. Her mom, Michelle Ball, sobbed at the first day of the trial into the 30-year-old's death. "She was my best friend," Ball told the court, wiping away tears. The supporters who came for Cooper today didn't want to talk, but in court, her mother said she'd started to turn her life around. In the last year of her life, she learned to manage her addictions. Addiction is a lifelong struggle, but she was living. This was the last place security footage showed Cooper alive in April 2016, a Riverdale apartment building where some of her friends live. Critical to the Crown's case, video surveillance from the building that will show Cooper meet the accused on the elevator. She gets off with him on the 23rd floor and heads towards his apartment. She was never seen or heard from again. 30-year-old Cooper missed several plans over the next few days, and her mom, who normally talks to her about 6 to 8 times a day, couldn't reach her by phone. She would always answer it, or she'd text me back if she didn't want to talk, but it was never off, her mom said. When a woman's severed torso was found a couple days later outside a Riverdale butcher shop, her mother feared it was her daughter's and remembered the moment she last saw her daughter alive after a day of shopping and relaxation. And then the cabbie came and I hugged her and she told me she loved me. She'd see me on the weekend. And before she got in the cab, she said, "Thanks for the day," Ball said, wiping away tears. And I never saw her again. The accused, Ian O'Hab, pleaded not guilty to first-degree murder, but pleaded guilty to an indignity to the remains of a human body. The Crown's evidence is expected to show he was seen at a nearby Home Hardware buying a hacksaw, and blood samples taken from his bathroom weren't ruled out as Cooper's. The Crown opened court today with this chilling summary about the murder trial. It's about a young woman who is killed by a man she encounters by chance in the elevator of an apartment building. So her torso was found outside a butcher shop here in Riverdale. Her right arm was found on a conveyor belt at a recycling plant in North York. But her head was never located, and we'll learn in the coming days of this trial that as a result of not being able to locate the head, they've never been able to determine a time of death or an exact cause of death. Chris Glover, CBC News, Toronto.
Freddie Anderson back in net for the Leafs tonight as Toronto hopes to bounce back from Saturday's loss to Boston. We'll have the highlights after the break.
The weather update is brought to you by Train Extreme Conditions Testing. It's hard to stop a train, really hard. Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
The Leafs hosting the Avalanche tonight. Frederik Andersen back in net after missing 8 games because of an injury and the flu. Let's pick it up in the second. Leafs up by 1. Kasperi Kapanen scores off a pass from Andreas Johnson to make it 2-0, but Colorado would hustle and tie the game up. Leafs with the man advantage here. Jake Gardiner has the puck taken away by Carl Soderberg. He's taken down by Gardiner, but still has the strength to fire it in. Mitch Marner does tie it up for the Leafs in the third until Soderberg scores not once but twice. This empty netter here completes his first career hat trick. Toronto would go on to lose 6-3. Colette is back with her extended forecast. Bit of a mild day, if we can say mild in January, at least compared to last couple days.
Yeah, that's nice to see those temperatures come up a little bit. We get a bit of a break, and it's going to extend into tomorrow. A quick look at the almanac for those average highs -2, average low almost -11. And by the way, I know you may be taking note that the record snow is from 1968 and be saying to yourself, but earlier in the show you're talking about how 20 years ago we had, you know, more than a meter of snow. That was over several days. Now there is a record from this date for the snow on the ground from 1999, and that was about 48 centimeters, and that was at Pearson. But there was more snow than that we know around that we were seeing around the area at that time 20 years ago. For us, we are looking at a little bit of flurry activity, some of that coming off the lakes. Mostly it's the clouds that are being enhanced through the overnight hours tonight, so those are building in. The wind's shifting around to the southwest. It helps bringing in the milder air, and what we'll see is that we get that milder air in place tomorrow and part of Wednesday, and then a cold front comes through and it'll shift the winds to the northwest, and it's going to plummet those temperatures, and they'll actually be falling through the day on Wednesday. For southwestern Ontario, lows of -7, again with that increasing cloudiness through the overnight hours, and you'll see quite a bit of cloud cover tomorrow with highs of -1 to 0, and the winds picking up from the southwest. They'll be gusty, 40, 50 kilometers an hour at times. So even though they're from the southwest and the temperatures aren't too bad, it does give a bit of a wind chill, so it'll feel a little cooler than that. Chance for some flurries tonight, especially here towards the west. -7 for Hamilton, -6 Mississauga, Markham a little cooler at -8 there. And then into tomorrow afternoon, looking at those highs around 0 to 1, a little bit better for St. Catharines. Quite a few clouds in place though. It's really tomorrow night into Wednesday we have a better chance of seeing some flurries or even a dusting. 0 on Wednesday early in the day, and then that front goes through and changes those winds. That's why Wednesday night into Thursday, -12 for the low, feeling cooler than that, and then a cooler day on Thursday with a mix of sun and cloud. I'll just point out that we do have the chance of seeing a system come through on the weekend, bringing some snow. I've got the totals really low at this point, but it could be twice that, so we'll be watching that through the week, Mike.
We'll see how that develops throughout the week. Okay, thanks, Colette.
You're welcome.
Coming up, an Ontario couple lands a contract with Disney, helping blind children see the beloved characters. We'll have that story coming up. Children with visual impairments will finally get the chance to see what Mickey Mouse looks like, thanks to a small company in Windsor that creates printed material for the blind.
Blind user will be able to see again, for want of a better word, see what Mickey Mouse looks like.
Well, they've just landed a contract with Disney to produce a series of activity books for kids. They'll be producing 5 books each year for 3 years. First 5 will feature traditional Disney characters like Mickey Mouse. The rest will be produced to coincide with new Disney projects. The first are expected to be ready around the end of the month. That's our newscast for tonight. I'll see you back here tomorrow night at 11. Good night.